Thanks for joining us. I'm Greg Hyslop, the CEO and founder of BISCIT. Today we're going to look at the Epicor Kinetic Warehouse application and just quickly looking at the Safe Harbour statement. I'm sure you've all seen that before. EKW, or Epicor Kinetic Warehouse at a glance. What is it? It's used by over 1,500 companies across more than 40 countries, and it puts the power of Kinetic in your hands. It's a first-class modern Android app. It's an easy-to-use mobile interface that's available within minutes from the Google Play Store. It streamlines workflows for rapid and precise scanning, minimizing transaction processing time, enhancing accuracy, and decreasing errors. We've had some customers report between 60 and 70% increase in throughput using the same number of staff, which is pretty impressive. And consequently, delivering increased operational efficiencies and significant cost savings across the organisation. Now, in terms of efficient processes, I thought I would, let's just share this screen. I thought I'd quickly just pick, pack and ship or pick and pack at least, a standard sales order. And I've got, just back here on the home screen, I've got a few favourites. I can navigate to the menu items up here, and I'm also showing my production feeds. This particular employee's logged onto a couple of different operations at the moment, but let's jump in and navigate it through the menu just so you can see some of the other options that are in the menu. Let's go to outbound order, and let's jump in and select the last order. There's 3 items on this order, and I'm going to pick them all. So I'm going to select them and move to view, which moves those items to my outbound order. Now, from the little secondary access menu, I've got a basic or a summarized view showing here, which I'm just seeing the part, the location and the quantity that I've got to pick. But I can navigate back to what we call the standard view, which is a lot more information. And there's a configuration option that allows you to determine what your preference is. So I've got mine set to basic view, but you can flip between the two as you need. Now, I'm just going to, so it's basically giving me the first part and the location. So once I get there, I'm going to scan a barcode, and I've just scanned a dozen. I require 13, so I'm going to grab an individual item. So with 2 scans, I've filled that 13 quantity. It's returned back to this list. It's telling me the next item that I need to go grab. So we'll scan the barcode for it. Now, it was a carton of 24, and that's what was required. So it was 1 scan, and the remaining item is the next barcode, of which we need 2. So we'll scan 2 of them, and that's the picking done. Now, the important point to note there is I didn't have to actually touch the screen or navigate through that process. Just by scanning those barcodes, when I got to the quantity that was required, it automatically returned me back to the list to go pick the next item. That's an example of some of the configuration options that are in the app and that allow you to tune and tweak the app for the way you want it to work. Now, at this point, it's now saying, basically, am I the person that's going to do the next transaction, which in this case is the packing. If I was to say no, it would basically pack this up and wait for somebody to pick it up in their process. I'm going to say, yes, I am going to do the next step. And the next step is to create the pack ID. So yes, I want to put all of these items onto the same pack ID. So I'll select all, and I'm going to say process. It's created the pack. I can say, yes, I want to view that pack. And if I was ready to ship it, I could simply just tap the ship button, and that would be the pick, pack, ship process complete. I want to use this in another example later. So I'm actually going to tap this secondary access menu again, and I want to set this particular pack ID to a closed state, so I can pick it up again a little later. Now, that's how simple a pick, pack and ship process can be and how streamlined it is. Moving on to some recent additions, I mentioned a couple of times there about the configuration options that are available in the app. And if I navigate to the menu and down to settings, There's lots of configuration options. If we just pick one of the examples, so let's just go into the settings for issues and returns, you'll notice there's a whole list, and if I scroll down the list, you'll notice how many there are. There's a whole list of options that you can enable or disable. They used to be just set at a company level, and that was the only option. Whereas now we've created what we call setting scope, which allows you to define each one of these. And if I tap one of these edit buttons here, you'll see that by default, it's the company level, and I can enable or disable that setting. I can then navigate to the sites and maybe turn that setting off or on by site. I can navigate to the team level and potentially turn it on or off for team, or only off for people who aren't in a team. Or if I go down to the employee level, and as the message here states, this setting is specific to me as the user that I'm logged in on here. But let's set this back to the company level. So all of the settings in the system are defined by that scope now. You can define where they are. If you don't want to use that, then you can just set them at this level, which by default, as it says here, is company controlled. Alrighty, let's minimize this for a sec. We added some other settings, as some of those that we were in the screen we were just looking at, but we have got some new settings for require a recipient name when adding a signature. There's a lot of places in the app that you can add photos and signatures, so sign on glass, and also an option to embed the packing number or the shipping number when you're taking a signature. So what that looks like once that signature is stored against the transaction, here's one I did earlier, and it then stamps the image with the name, the timestamp, and the pack ID it relates to, because in a week or a month's time, when you come back and look at that signature, nobody can recognize who signed for it. So that's something we've added fairly recently. The next item that we've added recently is an ability in the shipping settings to identify verification if all the items have been picked. So this can be set to ignore, warning, or stop. I've got mine set to warning, and it's basically just telling me that of the items that I'm picking on this order, it's not all, there's more lines that were on the original order. So for those of you that are doing sort of mixed mode processing, where you're picking some stocked items and manufacturing some items, and the manufacturing item might not be ready, this will prompt you that there's some other items on the order. So because I've set mine to a warning, I can choose to just continue. In the issues and returns side, we now have an ability to prevent overpicking for the PLT type material queue transactions, which are transfer order picking. Now, we have previously had settings to prevent over issuing on material issues and prevent overpicking on picking transactions, but we've added this specific one to prevent overpicking on transfer orders. Scan sequencing is functionality where you can define which order you want to scan the values that are going onto the field and then determine that order. But what we've added is an ability to, once you get to the last scanned element, that it will automatically process the transaction. So just saving another click, saving the user having to remember to hit save, you could turn that on. And finally, we've made some changes in the material queue and the data that displays. So the data that displays now is only relevant to that transaction. We used to display, if the PO number wasn't relevant, we'd still display the PO label, but with no PO number, or the sales order label would show, but no sales order. So now if you look at the transactions on the screen, we've got a replenishment transaction, which doesn't have any other information, but then we've got a purchased stock transaction, which is a lot tracked item, so it shows the lot and it shows the PO number. Then we move down to a manufactured to stock transaction, which therefore it has a job reference. A stock to ship transaction has an order reference, but you're not getting the labels for the values that are not relevant. So it's another change we've made recently. Now, some other recent additions, and let's get back to our screen. Let's go back to the menu. And if we go into shipping and customer shipment and call up that last pack ID that we created, and it's in a closed state, because we've added the ability to add phantom packs, but that ability is only available once the pack ID is closed. So if we go into phantom packs and say add packs, then we can specify, maybe we ended up with 3 packs here. And I can then go in and specify the length, the width, the height, the weight of each package. If I had selected a pack type, it would have filled these in, but I might have ended up with 3 very different size boxes. So that's an ability to add phantom packs that's been added fairly recently. Let's jump back out of that one. The next one is the ability to record downtime. We navigate back to home, and I could do it from here, but I just jump into one of these menus. Let's go into the labor menu and into started activities, which are the 2 activities that we're showing on that production feed on my home screen. And if I select one of these, there's now a new option for recording downtime. We record downtime. I can select my code. Because this is an Android app, if we want to put a note in, we can just simply use the microphone here, sweeping the factory floor. Saves a lot of time typing, and let's say start downtime. And now, as per downtime in Epicor, these jobs are grayed out, they're on hold, and I would need to end my downtime in order to continue working on these other jobs that I'm currently clocked into. So we can then just end downtime, and I'm back to recording time against the activities that I've currently started. The next one is adding part pictures. If we just navigate back to the material queue, and let's just grab any one of these really. Let's grab one that I know doesn't have an image at the moment. Let's grab this item here, this cane up, and navigate to my material queue. And I've got something else that when I did the pick, pack and ship that I forgot to mention is I've got require scan or scan validation turned on. So I was scanning the barcodes, so it was validating that I was actually picking the right product. So if I hadn't have been picking the right products, it would have errored, and it wouldn't let me save the transaction. I actually do have a part on image. So this little icon here that's blue, if I tap on it, it actually shows me the image. Now, I'm actually going to navigate back to this list and grab a different item. Let's grab this one. And you can see this one doesn't have an image. Now, all we've done is added the ability from within these transactions in the material queue simply to tap this little grayed out icon and take a photo while I'm processing it. So I'm just going to quickly take a photo of my keyboard here. And accept it and say OK. Upload that image, say OK. And that part now has that image attached against it. Okay, next one, just minimize this. The next one is, mentioned earlier, an ability to add sign on glass signatures and pictures and files. That actually exists in lots of parts, lots of functions in the app. And we've recently added it to the receipt, incoming receipt, or sorry, intercompany receipt header. So now you've got the ability to take a picture of the whole load on the back of the truck, or down to a line level individual line of an individual box that potentially was damaged. But the point here is these are the number of places in the app that you can currently add pictures and signatures and files to, but this list is constantly growing. So we've just added another one here in terms of intercompany receipts on the receipt page. Okay, inventory transactions. There's some inventory transactions that have been in the app for a while, but I thought it was worth going through them again. If we go into inventory adjustments, so let's just navigate. Oh, let's pull up the screen. Let's navigate down to inventory and adjust inventory, and we'll scan our barcode. Now I've got a configuration option turned on that allows me to specify that I can do an ad hoc count. I can do, if I don't tick it, it's just a standard inventory adjustment. But if I tick it and say that the actual count is 5,100, and you can see it's automatically filled in my reason code. Again, that's a configuration option. And I say process, then it's telling me that that count is actually 90 different to what's in stock. Do you want to do the adjustment? I say yes. I believe that functionality has been added into Epicor 2025.1 into the standard client. We've had that in the EKW app for quite some time now. It's quite a liked function, so I just thought I'd share that with you. The next one is inventory move, and if we go to move inventory, again, we'll just scan our barcode to load our item, and nothing too onerous here, but if again, I've got another configuration option turned on that if I change my bin location, and standard Epicor behavior is that the bin number is going to default to the primary bin. But if I was to pick another 2 bin that I wanted to move some stock to, that's not the primary bin, I've actually got a configuration option enabled that allows me to say, I'm moving all the stock into this bin and I want to set this as the primary bin while I'm doing that, moving it from the other primary bin. So that's a nice little feature that not everybody's aware of. Next one is move lot. So go down here to move lot. Now the logic of this form is a little bit different to what it has been and what it is in standard Epicor. And I have a template scan, so I'm combining multiple values into one barcode. So in my case, my warehouse and my bin number with one scan. And so the concept of this form is that I'm telling the system where I want to move something to, because I might be standing in front of that bin with the item with me. Now, from a lot number point of view, I can scan a lot, and if that lot is not unique, it will give me so I scanned a barcode that said it was lot number 1, and it's given me a list of all the parts that have a lot number 1 and tells me which ones are on hand or not. If I close that down, and if I had have scanned a barcode where that lot number was unique within a part, then I just get presented with the locations where that lot number exists for that part. And let's close that down and clear that. And if I was to have, same barcode, let's go back. And we get the next barcode. If I had scanned a barcode that was completely unique, then all I've done is scanned in the location I want to move it to, scanned in my lot number that is unique across the whole warehouse, and I can simply hit process. And it goes and finds where it currently is to move it from. So I'm not seeing the form cluttered up with the from information. It knows where it is already. And so you're just telling it where you want to move it to. You can put a reference in if you like. So that's that one. And the last one that I wanted to show you is a move bin to bin. Now here I can again scan my location template, which is a combination barcode of my warehouse and my bin number with one scan. And you'll notice I've got an option to move it to the primary bin, because that might not be the primary bin for the parts that are in that bin. How do I know what parts are in that bin? I can click this little information icon. So I can click the little information icon and it shows me what's in that bin. Now, I can specify then that I want to move it to this location. And again, I get another little information icon so I can see what's in, let's just minimize the keyboard, what's in that location where it's going to. And I can choose to include parts and PCIDs and or PCIDs or both of them, and then hit process. So if I had 10 different items in my bin 3 and I wanted to move them to bin 0102, once I hit process, it would go and move all of those items and essentially empty out bin 3, but I'm getting the visibility as to what's in bin 3, what's currently in bin 0102, and processing that behind the scenes. Okay. The next thing I wanted to cover is the power of BPMs. Now, let's just navigate to customer shipment screen. And I want to show you an example of a BPM form that the app now supports. So let's just open a pack ID, and we've already got items on this pack ID. And if I navigate to pack out and scan my order number, I've actually got a non-quantity bearing, non-stock item on my order of ZZZ, which is actually set up as a handling fee. Now, I can specify that I want to charge a handling fee, but I may want to determine the value of it after I've picked the items for some reason, because the price is variable. When I hit save on this transaction, it actually pops up a BPM form, and this is just an example of BPM forms. Pops up a form and says, how much do you want to charge? So I can say $60. And what that's actually done is it's a BPM form to collect the information, and then a BPM to go back to that ZZZ handling fee item that was put on the original sales order and actually update the price of that item on the sales order. So it's just an example of the sort of things that you could achieve with the fact that the app now supports BPM forms. Okay, the next thing I wanted to talk about is the BPM context information that's available on the forms. And if I just navigate back to the material queue for a moment, and we'll just pick one of these items, it doesn't really matter which one. And I click on the little question mark up here in the corner. Now there's some useful information from here that a lot of people are not aware of. First one being scanner subscriptions. So if I navigate to scanner subscriptions, it's telling me a number of things. It's telling me this form that I launched this from, what is, if I don't enable or I don't select a field, if there's no field in focus, what is the default scan that form is expecting? I've also got a multi-barcode or template scan configured for this form, which we're going to get into in a moment. And it gives me some more information about what fields are scannable and the fact that I've got a global template, location template, which I have been using, where combining my warehouse and my bin into one barcode. So quite useful information in there. But the BPM context information, which is used for both sending form and application references to control directive execution and receiving modification directives. Now, if we tap on the BPM context information screen, what this is telling me is if I was to write a BPM in Epicor, I can conditionally set that BPM to only fire if something's done from the EKW app, and more specifically, because there's often a number of ways to process the transactions, only for this particular form. So what that allows me to do is use BPMs to set the objects in the app based on other business rules. So you can conditionally use these core context character values to say only execute this BPM when that method is run from EKW and only when it's run from this particular form in EKW. Now, the second item that we've got here is an ability to modify the directives to change the behavior of the app. So when we received that, when we picked that sales order and the scan incrementer popped up, where we basically scan, and it built it up to the quantity, I may not want to do that in every situation. This is telling me that I can disable this. One of the examples is I can disable the incrementer conditionally for some reason. So just wanted to show you that's where to find that information. And if we now navigate to outbound order, bear with me, outbound order, which is going to be order 65. Now, this is a lot track part, and I've actually allocated the order by lot. So the sales order requested 15 pounds of this item, but I've allocated by lot, and so consequently I've got 2 transactions in the material queue, a quantity of 10 of lot 1000 and a quantity of 5 for lot 1001. Now I'm going to select both of them because I'm going to pick them, which just moves those records into my outbound order, and I'm going to scan my barcode. It's opened it. You saw quickly there that it's validated that it's the right part, and it's 5 of 10 pounds. Now, some functionality we've also added is we used to only have the ability when we used the scan incrementer to scan the part number. In that one QR code, I've got a number of pieces of information. So I've scanned, and it includes the part number, it includes the lot number, it includes the quantity, and it includes the unit of measure being pound. Now, I've also got included in there a unique ID that is an ability so that I can control that the same item's not scanned multiple times. So you can see the unique ID that's on that barcode on that item is ID 1. If I try to scan that same item again, it's telling me that it's already been scanned. Now, if I grab my next barcode and scan it, which was another 5 pounds, it's returned back to the lines asking me now to go find the next lot that was allocated. So again, if I was to scan at this point that same barcode that I've got here, which was actually lot 1000, it's saying, no, there is none of those. You're looking for a 1001. Sure, if I've got a barcode for that, let's see. Oh, there we go. That's our 1001. And then we can say, yes, we want to pack it. We select all the items and create the pack ID. So again, there's a number of things happening there. We've got a unique, almost check digit, so that things can't be signed twice. And we've been able to use a template scan. So that's a barcode with multiple elements in it inside the scan incrementer. Now, the second example that I wanted to show you, if we go back to our outbound order and we'll grab another order, grab this 66. This is the same part, so it's a lot track part. This one I haven't allocated by lot number, but when I select it and view it, I needed my barcode, and I scanned my barcode. This is an example of, it's exactly the same part. It's in fact exactly the same barcode, but because I hadn't allocated it by lot, and I conditionally put a BPM in that said, if my quantity was over, in my case, I said if my quantity was over 100, disable the scan increment function. Because if I'm typically saving these in lots of £5 and someone needs 120, I don't really want to have to stand here and scan that many times to get up to the quantity. So I've disabled the incrementer via a BPM, and I can enter the quantity. I can enter the quantity as 100 or the maximum amount 120. I can even default that quantity in if I turned on another configuration option that said default it to the remaining quantity. But the point is I can conditionally control whether that incrementer kicks in or not. So I've done it based on the quantity of the order, but I could use any criteria. It might be based on the customer, it might be based on the part, it might be based on the quantity, it could be anything. So there's a number of different ways to manage the configuration from that point of view. All right, I think that's all I wanted to work through today. So hopefully you got some value out of that, and thank you for joining us.